Hi, everybody. I'm here with Adrianne Taylor, and she is a boy mom of 5. So that is like an awesome feat to me because look at her. She's smiling. And she doesn't have gray hair. And she's like,
yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Oh, well, I mean, So, Adrianne, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely.
To Motherhood Unfiltered is going to be okay. There's lots of times moms are in the middle of some kind of catastrophe or anxiety attack or some kind of the everyday thing that happens, and it may not feel like it's going to be okay in the moment, but if you keep a positive mindset and work through the problems, it's at the in the end it's going to be all right. So so I just want to get started. Tell us about your podcast,
okay,
and about your family and how you started the podcast.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. Like I said before, I'm a little weirded out being on the other side. So thank you for having me be your guest. When you were on my podcast, we just had a great conversation. So I'm excited for today. So like you said, I have a podcast. It's called The Relentless Boy Mom. And just because, like, when I was trying to think of, I knew I wanted to be, well, I am a boy mom. I didn't set out to be a boy mom. We'll just say that boys 3, 4, and 5 were all prayed to be girls, but they're amazing as boys. So when people say, are you trying for your girl? Yeah, 3, 4, and 5. That was supposed to be a girl. But so in looking back, my oldest is 25, my youngest is 6, kind of a little bit of a spread, well, a big spread there. And just thinking of a word that described me as a mom and all of us as moms, actually. And relentless seemed to be the word that just stuck out, that no matter what, like what you said, no matter what, we just keep going and it's going to be all right. We can't ever give up. I mean, our kids are looking to us in any situation, and how we react is how they're going to react. How we perceive the situation is how they're going to perceive it. And so just for all of us, and you don't have to be a boy mom to listen to my podcast or even be a guest on it. You have to be relentless. And I think that once you become a mom, that's who you become. So I was a very young mom. And like I said, my oldest is 25. So, I mean, I was very young and just didn't have a lot of support inside my home. And so I was always looking to everyone else outside of what I should be doing. And unfortunately, I did not stop to pay attention to my kid. And so my oldest 2, I look back a lot and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could redo that. I wish I could, go back and just tell that young mom that listen to your kid, like what we're supposed to listen to our bodies when we're being healthy. Listen to your kid and what he needed. And so the reason that I started the podcast, yes, I have lots of kids and I've learned a lot over the years, but it was almost for that mom at the beginning that felt like I have to look to everyone else. And this is any stage of being a mom. I mean, we're constantly changing and growing with our kids. And so
I think a lot of times we like all the mistakes that I made when with the first one, and when you're learning with the second one. And now, like you said, you go back and you're like, I was so naive or dumb or whatever. And I mean, if you could tell somebody, hey, okay, don't do this that I did. I mean, yes, people need to learn from their own mistakes and their own experiences, but sometimes if someone tells you, okay, remember, don't do this or do this, it's in your mind, for someone who's learning, or starting out.
Yeah. So. And that's why I started it, is to share the knowledge of things that I have learned over the years, but to just let all moms know that you're doing the best that you can. Stop looking at, I mean, we talk
Mm-hmm.
about this all the time. Everyone's highlight reels. Social media can be a beautiful
Yeah.
thing, but also a horrible thing, because we're
Yeah.
looking at these little snippets of pictures and these little snapshots of their life. Like, I
I
have the most
know.
beautiful picture hanging in my house. It's on the other side of the living room. And my boys look angelic. They look, I mean, my one son has his head just leaning on my shoulder, and he looks like, do you know the 45 minutes leading up to that picture was pure, you know what I'm saying, not heaven.
Oh yeah.
And so everyone looks at that picture and they're like, oh, that's so beautiful. And I'm like, no, there is sweat dripping down my back. I was about ready to give him up for adoption. And the lady, the
I
photographer at
know.
Walmart, I was like, you can take him. I'm done. So we're looking at this little snapshot of
Mhm.
someone's life, and we don't know what's happening before the picture or after the picture, or before the 15-second video or after the 15
Right.
video. And that's what we're basing our motherhood on. And that it's
Yeah.
so
I
not.
know. I've got a perfect example of the boys. I had them all dressed up for Easter Sunday, and I got several good pictures. And then I snapped one, and the youngest just lost his mind, and he's screaming and crying. And so I've got the before and the afters.
Mhm.
Before, they're all smiling and sitting still, and the after is he's screaming his head off, and the other two looking at him like, "That's what I want to do, scream my head off." You know?
Can I do what he's doing? And that's it.
Yeah.
And we look at these pictures and these perfect, and sometimes we get that picture perfect moment.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean,
Yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that either, but it's when we focus on everyone's
Mm-hmm.
picture perfect moments. And
Mm-hmm.
and so that's why I just felt like, okay, sorry, I got a tickle now. Um, that it never goes how you want, right? I'm gonna take a sip of water real
Oh, you're
quick.
fine. I always have my drink with me.
Well, you should see, I have like 4 drinks over here. So my coffee, my smoothie, my water, I never know what
And
I'm
the
gonna feel
special
like.
drink.
What time is it right now?
It's 5 o'clock somewhere, lady.
Yeah, and I'm working from home, so it's fine. It's not like I'm driving anywhere. It's totally fine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So,
so now that you have, your son, does he see the difference in your mothering with your younger boys and comment on it? And does he can he offer good advice or bad advice to the younger ones? Because that happened with me. Mine are only a few years apart, but the middle son decided to tell the younger one about the birds and the bees, and he freaked out. He's like,
yeah.
"What? I don't want that to happen to me." And it's like, well, I wasn't going to tell you about that yet
Right.
because I don't think you're ready. So does your older son, does he offer any kind of needed or wanted advice to the younger?
Yeah. Yeah. They love pointing out the difference in how, and we talk about it. That's something, I guess, before I go any further, is to recommend, or not even recommend, but just to really encourage that.
Yeah.
Talk about the past. Don't pretend. I think so
Mm-hmm.
often we do ourselves and our kids a disservice by,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want to talk about the past because it's too painful. I don't want to talk about how I messed up as a mom and
Right.
how I'm so
Right.
much better today. I mean, there's a huge difference between my oldest and my youngest, and even just how I thought as a mom, how I parented, and things that
Yeah.
mattered. Things that I thought mattered, I guess I should say, when
Yeah.
my oldest was a kid, to now when I look at the 6-year-old and I'm like, oh man, I used to yell at Caleb for doing stuff like that. And it doesn't even matter. Like, what is the
No.
point? So,
No.
yes, he loves to point out, well, I didn't have that as a kid, or I didn't, I got in trouble for that as a kid.
Yeah.
And he does, and I'm also less like high anxiety. So, if
Uh-huh.
Cash falls, I'm like, okay, get up, you're fine. So, but a lot of the times Caleb will be like, oh, fifth kid problems, Cash, fifth kid problems, because sometimes you're
Yeah.
forgotten as the fifth kid.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's not a huge deal. So, like this summer, we all went out on a boat
Uh-huh.
and Cash was a little bit more afraid of the water, and Caleb was like, "Oh, you're fine," and pushed him in. I mean, he had a life jacket on and everything. And I was like,
Right.
"What are you doing? You got to give him a little bit more." So then I pushed Caleb in. And so Cash has no trauma from that incident because he's like, "Well, mom redeemed me and she pushed you in."
Yeah.
So there is a huge difference. And even just like money, I was a single mom for a lot of Caleb's years. And so
Hmm.
wasn't receiving child support and
Yeah.
was just working really hard. I had 3 boys. And so obviously there's a big difference even in monetary because we have
Right.
more money now. My husband
Right.
just works so hard and provides everything that we could ever need or want. And so
Exactly.
so we
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
try.
And I know that's not just with boys, but it is with because I come from all girls. I have one
Mhm,
brother. There's four of us girls and a brother. He's right smack in the middle of us all. So we had the same things where I was the oldest and I was like, gee, mom, you made me do this and that and all the dishes. Try doing dishes for 7 people. I hate doing dishes,
yeah,
okay, just because of that.
same.
So, so anyway, I mean, because that would be just, I think the hierarchy of siblings
Yeah.
anyway. They're going to fight and argue and stuff like that.
Hmm.
But so when you remarried,
Hmm.
and so tell me a little bit how the oldest, how that transition worked with, because we're a blended family too.
Hmm.
And so it was tricky,
Yeah.
for the first 3 or 4 years,
Hmm.
that we were married and had the
Hmm.
boys and everything. So how did that go for you? And
So I had never been divorced and remarried before. That was a first for me.
oh,
Um,
okay.
and so I don't know that we did the best that we could with what we
Hmm.
knew.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
unfortunately, again, these are times where we had to go back and be like, Caleb, we should have done things this way. So,
Yeah.
my husband came in and he is a very dominant person, very,
Hmm.
you know,
Gung ho
male
and
dog, alpha dog, and coming in and there's just all these boys and all this. So he wanted to, almost like mark his territory. I don't know. He would be like, "Why are you saying that?" But kind of, that's kind of what he
that's
was
what,
doing.
it's what it is. I'm sorry.
Yes, and so looking back, we would have brought Caleb more into, because for so long, like I said, I was a single mom and Caleb was
Hmm.
my right hand man. And
Right.
he
Yep.
was my protector, and he and I did everything together. Like he looks
Hmm.
back, and the only reason I made it as a mom is because he was there helping me. He's like, you couldn't have
Yeah.
done it without me. And he like fully believes that 1,000%. And
He
so I
sounds like an
wished
alpha male too.
they all are. They all are. So I wish that we would have brought him into more conversations before AJ
Right.
moved in, before we got married, before any of the other boys were born.
Right.
And so
Right.
that I guess I would recommend is if you are a single mom, looking to
Hmm.
remarry, just especially if you have, I mean, I guess any of your oldest, I can't speak from, I mean, I was the oldest daughter. And so I
Hmm.
guess speaking from the oldest daughter, whatever, if you have a boy or a girl, bring
Yeah.
them into the conversation because their life is going to be changing. Yes, there's going to be so
Right.
many good things. Having a
Right.
positive male role model in the home, yes, obviously that's going to be amazing and change the family dynamics. But them
Yeah.
going from your right hand man helping you raise the other siblings, because you can't make it on your own. I wish that I would have brought him in a little bit more,
Yeah.
but he is such an adaptable kid, and
Mm-hmm.
he and AJ are close. He did ask us once when he was younger. He said, "Do you get your height from your dad or from your stepdad?" Because his stepdad is taller
Oh,
than his dad. So he was like, "Where do I get my height from? Because I really want to be tall."
oh, that's
So
sweet.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
think I think as single moms that you find Mr. Right and you're like yes to everything because you know that there may be struggles, but everything's just going to be so much better. So I know I assumed that the boys would be like okay with Glenn,
yeah, right.
and but I was slow to bring him in to their lives. Like we had dated for a long time before I even introduced him to the boys. And so they got to hang out, and Glenn is very open. He's like, I'm not your dad. I love your mom, and I'm going to do what's best for her and you guys. So we did have some sort of a conversation like that, but there were still some tricky times when once they got through puberty and they were ready to go out on their own, there was some clashing going on and some, that I always reminds me of that Garth Brooks song where the boys are going to take the old man down, but he just sets them right back in their place. I kind of get that scenario in my head when I think about some of the scuffles that we had, not like physical scuffles, but the whole verbal conversation.
We did have some scuffles, so we had some scuffles here.
Hey, sometimes, you know what? There was a couple times when the boys were younger, I'm like, you know what? You two need to go out in the yard and fight it out. And that would happen sometimes,
I've walked in on my house being rearranged and I'm like, why is my kitchen rug in the garage? And why is there a random sock? I don't want to know. Just clean it up.
It's totally different than fighting with your sisters, I mean.
And I'm the oldest of 6. And like you said, my brother is kind of in the middle. I mean, 6, but and it's all girls. So I would be like, I was telling someone like, try and tell people you have 4 sisters and a brother. And he's like, try telling people you have 5 sisters. So it was a whole, just like you, it was a whole different thing going from being in a house of girls, and my brother was, he was a hockey player and all of that. So there was some testosterone in the house, but all girls. Yeah. And then all of a sudden being a single mom of 3 boys, I was like,
oh my gosh,
what is happening in this house? I don't understand. So
I tell people, I think God was looking out for me because my sisters, they had girls. And when they were little, it was like all clouds and rainbows and suckers, And then when they hit puberty, it was like the witches just came out of the 4 winds of the earth, the 4 corners of the earth. But they're good ladies now, but
well, when you're going,
I was like,
and that's what
I don't think I could have made it.
People who don't, my first Caleb, the oldest, he was the most complacent kid. He just, if I said stop crying, he'd stop crying and just happy. And so when people would talk about the middle school, I'm like, he's not going to do anything. And all of a sudden, one day he went from being my buddy to all, and I saw him walking down the street with his friends after school and he smiling and then sees me. And it went from immediately his face just changed. For anyone who can't see, his face went from smiling to anger, and I was like, where did my kid go? So and my third son, who's the most easygoing kid in the entire world, when he hit, it's 8th grade for my boys, it's 7th, 8th grade. He could not, I was driving him to school, he could not be, if he could morph through the window, he would have on the way to school. He could not get close enough to the door to get away from me. And then he usually, we're a hugging family. And so I'd always hug him goodbye. And I remember this
Oh
one particular
yeah.
day, he like slid out the door, didn't even hardly open the door. Like if I would have kept going, he would have jumped out the window. Like kids get insane at that age, boys or
They
girls.
do.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm very thankful that I have the boys because it's just an attitude. You know, they
Yeah.
just give me dirty looks all the time and like, whatever. I don't even,
I know.
this is how I
You're so
always act.
weird.
Yeah. Like their favorite, my favorite thing of all of the boys so far, 3 out of the 4, but my 4th one is just hitting that stage. And so, their faces are always like, what? And I'm like, are you in a bad mood or something? And they're like, this is how I always am. I'm like, no. We'll pull out that picture from like 6 months ago when you were like smiling
I
so
know.
cheesy. So yeah.
It's very, I tease them, like, well, I'm your mom, so I'm the special lady in your life. They're like,
Mhm.
whatever,
Yeah.
I got a whole line of them at school,
I
but
bought them a phone holder that says call your
uh,
mom. So whenever they charge their phone on their phone charger, the thing says call your mom. So, and they still use it. And that was like 5 years ago. They still have
yeah,
it. So,
yeah, I know. But now that they're older, they're like, mama's boys and
mhm.
everything. So, I mean, I do enjoy that. I do enjoy seeing them as adults.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like seeing them struggle. I mean,
Yeah.
like that really hurts me in the heart, but
Mhm.
but they are like working through it. And it's like, so when I see that, I'm like, I think, oh, I did do something a little right,
Yeah.
They're able to handle adulthood as best as
Mhm.
they know how, and they're working through the problems. Because I feel like today, the critical thinking through trying to work a problem is like
Mhm.
gone.
Gone.
Like they don't know how to do it. I'm like,
No.
I mean, don't tell me you don't know how to spell something. Don't tell me you don't know what time it is. Don't tell me you don't know how to get somewhere when you've got a smartphone in your hand,
Mhm.
And it's like, don't you know what this thing does for you? So I'm just like, people are just absent from
Yeah.
their mind.
Yeah.
I don't know how
No,
else to
I
say it,
I agree, and I just feel like sometimes they look for us to just give them answers,
Yes.
and I'm really
Yeah.
working with my 4th son, he's 12, almost 13, so like I said, that fun
He's
age.
like, why don't you just tell me?
Yeah,
No,
like, yeah,
I could do
so
that for the rest of my life.
I have
If
your
I
dad.
started.
I have your dad, I still have to
Yeah.
but something that you said, it really it made me think of something my mom told me years and years ago, and she said,
Uh-huh.
it's almost tougher raising adult children because as little kids, you can kind of
Hmm.
help them work through their problems. You can make decisions
Yes.
for them. When you
Yes.
are raising adult children,
Yes.
now is your time to be like, okay, everything I've done all these years leading up to this, now you need to figure out. I can't tell you what to do with your life because
Right.
then that would be my life. You're living your life. And just like
Right.
I have had to make decisions that are difficult, but they've made
Yeah.
me into a better person. But
Right.
watching our adult children have to go through that, it sometimes I feel like it is tougher than the sleepless nights of a newborn or,
Yeah.
the terrible twos, which I don't know if it was the terrible twos for me. I feel like the threes were worse, but yeah. So, it's sometimes I
Anything during the potty training years was a nightmare. So.
yeah. Yeah. But I feel like and it helps me now having a 6-year-old and a
Yeah.
25-year-old because
Uh-huh.
then I can see both spectrums, like both sides
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
cherishing my 25-year-old because now we
Right.
can have conversations and I mean, not that all the conversations are fun and easy, but it's easier
Right.
once, finding out that when we talk more, we grow closer as a son and a mom. But
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
not it's difficult for me to talk about difficult things, but now knowing like, okay, once we get through this difficult conversation, but then also having a 25-year-old helps me appreciate the 6-year-old
Yes.
and all the that's why they're like I kind of just sit back like, I'll allow it. I don't even care. I know what's coming. I know what's coming. Why does it even
like
matter?
you're the queen.
Right.
I allow it. Well, I think for me, it would, it's kind of like with my granddaughter. Like, I get to just slow down and enjoy her. You know, because when the boys were little, it was like, oh my God, this decision, is it going to impact them as an adult?
Yeah.
Are they going to go to prison because I said yes to this, you know, or no to that? And so, like, but now, I mean, I could see how you're looking at, you know, your oldest and think, okay, I did not get to enjoy as much time with him as I can now with the youngest, you know, because some of that stuff that I thought mattered doesn't matter. You know,
and all that pressure, is off. I mean, I'm not a grandparent yet, but I can't wait. It's either I have a baby or one of my boys has a baby, and I really don't want to be pregnant anymore. So they better hurry up and get on the ball, because I'm like having that. I need to hold a baby. But there, I mean, and even with having that age gap, I feel like there's so much pressure off, even of Cash, who's 6, because I know that not every decision is like a huge decision, but at the same time, I know what decisions matter and what battles matter. What are the things that I need to, you know, and having open conversation, that's what matters. Talking about them. And something that they had said is that not a lot of people ask anymore, how are you really doing? You know, we ask it flippantly when we pass. And so when one of them said that, I was like, do I ask you? And they're like, I don't know. So that is something that I'm really trying to work on, is to be more mindful and be more, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but making sure that when I am with them, whether it's kids that live in my home or ones that don't, is just, you know, how are you really? Like, how are things really going today? And maybe things are fine and there's not a big deal, but just being more mindful and intentional of asking them. That was the word I was looking for. I'm like, it's right there. It's right there. It's going to come to me eventually. But just being more intentional of asking them how they are. And so, and I never even thought about it.
I know. I find the conversations I have now with them are more, I love the ones that are intellectual, you know, where we can talk about subjects and opinions and feelings and things. And then but I also enjoy the ones where they crack me up, you know, where they make me laugh and I'm about ready to bust a gut, you know, because they just, you know, they just know how to crack those jokes. And we have our own sense of humor. You know, I don't know if anybody would understand it ever, but it's, you know, the dry, very dry humor, you know, and just hilarious, you know, like, oh yeah, you think you're real funny, don't you? You know,
that's us too.
So if you, so what would you recommend, you know, to someone who is like stressing out because they have boys or they're just a blended family? I mean, what would you recommend? You know, would you just recommend like doing an all-day physical activity, or strangling each other, or
all of the above,
holding hands and singing Kumbaya? I mean, I don't know, you know.
So something that is really important to us, and not every day goes perfect. I love planning family activities. But first of all, no matter what you plan, you have to understand it's not going to go perfect. And so, like, for instance, for Christmas, we piled everyone in a van. We have like an old beater van that when everyone is here and we all want to be together, that's where we drive. I found this place where we're going to go listen or watch Christmas lights. And I thought we were going to like walk through as a family and get hot chocolate. And so we're driving there and everyone's singing Christmas carols. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be the perfect thing. And then when we get there, one of them all of a sudden has stomach issues and has to go to the bathroom immediately. And what I thought was us walking around around, you actually sit in your car. Well, then sit in the
Oh.
car, everyone's like, I'm too hot. Like, it's really hot in here. But you have to leave your car on because you have your radio station set. So 3 of them go to the bathroom. 2 of them stand outside, and I'm like sitting in the van, like, this
We're
is not
supposed
how
to
it's
be
supposed to go.
together.
This was supposed to be a family thing. And so I think the first thing is, yes, plan things to do. Like, we like to do, we're an active family, so we do active things. We play on a kickball team together. We just went ice skating on Christmas Eve, and, you know, going for walks and hiking. We like
Yeah.
trying to find like hiking trails and stuff. And I always seem to find the hottest day of the year to go hiking. Oh my goodness, like 100 degrees, and everyone's like, so doing activity things and
Right.
just being together, but knowing that it's not always going to be perfect, and
Right.
letting go of the expectations, but knowing that you're creating memories. And
Right.
so yes, so my first recommendation is do activities together. And it doesn't have to even be expensive things. Like I said,
Oh,
go for
no.
walks, or go to your local
Yeah.
park and bring a kickball and or a soccer ball and play,
Right.
and know that it's probably going to end up in fights because someone is more competitive than someone else, and someone is better, and
And
you know.
someone
So
cheated.
yeah, always. Someone always is cheating, apparently. When you're losing, the other person is always cheating. So do something, do fun things together and create memories, but let your expectations just be gone, and just let
Right.
it, whatever happens, happens. If you don't,
Right.
you know, we like to travel and go Christmas shopping as a family, and go to a certain restaurant. And I had the day planned out, and it just didn't go, but we were all together. And so then
Yeah.
it creates, and just always keep in the back of your mind, no matter what is going on, this is going to be a fun memory later on.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
even if it's
Yeah.
like crappy in the moment and you're like, oh, this sucks, it's not going right,
Or
just know
even if
that,
the happy moment is 30 seconds.
right,
You
right,
know.
be thankful for every single happy moment. But the
Exactly.
other thing is, just talk with your kids. And
Yeah.
whether you have made mistakes in the past, which in the past could be 5 seconds ago, but just talk with them, get into their
Oh,
life,
yeah.
ask them how they're doing, but be honest. And it's not always going
Right.
to be fun, and it's not always
Yeah.
going to be the best conversations. But if
Right.
we're pretending that everything is fine, what does that do? And if we're pretending, you know, so
Exactly. Yeah. I
yeah.
think everyone could definitely use more time to talk with their kids and just let them feel safe enough to say whatever it is. I feel like, you know, now that boys have gotten more when they're all adults now, they'll talk about things that they did not like. And I felt like, oh man, I think that I should have, you know, been more receptive. And there were times when I was like, okay, this is how I feel about this, and this is what we're going to do. Even though they may have felt differently and they did not feel comfortable enough to talk to me about it, because my rule was the rule and they weren't going to disobey it. And so there are some of those little things that are really important, but I did not catch the moment. And so now we have repercussions from that, you know, where we have some difficult conversations and some hurt feelings and, you know, and things. It's just, you know, I just would hate for that to happen to other people. I know it's going to happen because we're all human. But yeah, definitely.
But once you talk about it, then it's not that elephant in the room. Once you talk about the things from the past that may be difficult, instead of just letting it always hang over you, talking about it and getting it out. And I mean, be prepared for some honesty. I mean, there's been some conversations that I've left the room crying, like, oh my gosh, was I that horrible as a mom? Like, was there anything good that I did? Like, every time you guys get together, you just, and part of it is they like joking because, you know, like, oh, remember when you made us drink spoiled milk? In my defense, I did not know. But so they like to bring
you
up,
would do that on purpose, you know.
right. But I mean, this is what 18 years ago, and they're still talking. Like, seriously, get over it. Okay, we've talked about this. We've beat this dead horse. Yes, I did, but they wasted food. In my defense, okay, so now I gotta tell you, in my defense, I was a single mom. We got money from a food bank. They wasted food all the time. Like, they would pour a bowl of cereal, eat half of it, and dump it out. Make a sandwich, take 3 bites, and then I'm not hungry anymore. I don't like it. So I finally got to the point of whatever you make, you are eating no matter what. So they got up and they kept saying the cereal tastes bad. And I was like, oh, not enough sugar in it? Like, no, you're going to eat it. Well, it wasn't the cereal that was tasting bad. It was the milk. So I made them eat it. I made them eat it all. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to have some cereal now, and I'm going to eat this bad cereal. And then I like ate it, and I was like, oh,
the milk.
Yeah, no, this milk is really bad. Did you guys smell it? So
you made us eat it.
But they're alive. Their immune systems are good, so they're fine. But
I'm
so
like,
that's a funny
just because it says it's expired doesn't mean it's bad. Okay, so I'm like, we're not throwing
this one was bad though. It was
I
bad.
know, but I mean, it would. I'm sure it would happen to me too, because there's plenty of times we went to go get milk and it was bad, you know, and it was because I don't throw anything out.
Well, and I couldn't. I mean, we needed every last bit. I had 3 growing boys. So.
I know. I definitely feel you on that one for sure. So, well, I'm so glad that you got to take time out and talk to me today about your boys and the relentless boy mom. I think if you're a mom, you have to be relentless. I mean, even when they are in bed for the night, and you know that they're doing good. I mean, I would lay there and just think, oh God, you know, the moment of dread, like, what did I do the right thing today? And other times I would go to sleep and be like, yeah, I think we're going to make it, you know, but
oh yeah, I can't tell you the countless nights I laid in bed just I almost wanted to wake them up and be like, I'm so sorry. And so I'd make this you know, resolution that as soon as we wake up tomorrow's going to be a different day, and I'm going to be a better mom. I'm not going to yell at them. And then I would be woken up by stop and like everybody fighting, and I wake up like, ah! And then I'm like, well, that went down the tube. We'll try it again tomorrow.
I would be like, okay, wait a minute, stop fighting. I need a hug and a kiss. You know?
I would tell them, I'm like, how do you expect me to wake up in a good mood when you guys wake me up by fighting over the stupidest thing? Because you didn't get the green spoon. Okay. Get the green spoon tomorrow. I don't know what to tell you.
The green spoon is in the trash. Nobody gets it now.
Yes, I'm snapping the green spoon.
Well, so can they listen to your podcast on any platform, or is it just on?
Spotify, Apple, iTunes. I mean, actually, it's on some. I was like, did I even put it on this platform? So
yeah, if it has an RSS feed, they usually, there was some that I think the only one I had to check was iHeart was the one I don't think.
Okay, I'm not sure, but if you just wherever you listen to podcasts, if you type in the Relentless Boy Mom, 3 words, you'll see a picture of me with my 5 sons, and my oldest one is pushing my youngest one over, and that's why I went with that, because there's no
that's
perfect
what
picture,
it is.
and this is what my life is. Someone is not looking at the camera. Someone is pushing someone else. And then my second son's looking like, what are they doing? Like, just let's hurry up and get this picture. I hate taking pictures, so let's get it. So so you can find it anywhere. And I have guests on. You were actually on it, so they can look for your episode. And so thank you for ours. So. Okay, maybe I will too. But thank you for having me. Like I said, it was different being on the other side, but it was
a good
fun.
Experience.
Yes, I really appreciate it. And I love to talk, so ask me one question and then give me the next 30 minutes.
I know, right?